Nothing fancy in this video, guys. I'm going to solve some trig problems. I'm Mr. Boyle. Are you ready? Okay, just like the intro said, guys, I'm not going to do a lot of chit-chat today on this video. We're just going to solve some trig problems so you can see what's going on. Let's get into it. So in the first problem here, I see that it wants to know what is the tangent of C. It doesn't ask what is the measure of angle C. It wants to know what the tangent of C is. Now, as you should have written down from the last couple videos, tangent means the opposite leg divided by the adjacent leg. So all I need to do is figure out what's the opposite leg and what's the adjacent leg. I know right away that 12 and 5 are my legs because those are the two sides that make the right angle. So the only question is it 12 over 5 or 5 over 12? Now, if I'm standing at angle C and I look through the triangle to the other side, I see I hit the 12. That means that's my opposite side. The answer here should be 12 over 5. That fraction is not reducible. I'm done with this problem. The tangent of C is 12 over 5. Number 2. The cosine of x. Angle x is right there. And now the question is, what is the cosine of that angle? Once again, from the last video, you should know that cosine means the adjacent leg divided by the hypotenuse. So I need to make another fraction on this one. The adjacent leg will go on top. The hypotenuse will go on the bottom. Now, right away, I know the hypotenuse in this one is 50. If I draw an arrow through the right angle to the opposite side of the right angle, I hit the 50. That will always be my hypotenuse. Now, when I go back to x, if I draw an arrow through x to the other side, I hit 30. That's my opposite leg. I don't want that one. I want my adjacent leg. So if 30 is my opposite leg, that means that 40 is my adjacent leg. And right now I have the cosine of x is equal to 40 over 50. But on these kinds of problems, you should really reduce the fraction. And I'm going to say it's 4 over 5. The cosine of x is 4 over 5. Let's move on to number 3, the sine of z. From the last video, you should now know that the sine ratio means the opposite leg divided by the hypotenuse. And in this problem right away, across from the 90-degree angle is always your hypotenuse, so I know that's 35. So I know 35 will go on the bottom. But which is my opposite leg? Well, that depends on which angle we're talking about. Are we talking about angle x or angle z? In this case, we're talking about angle z. And angle z is this guy here. The leg on the other side of it is the 21. So the sine of z is equal to 21 over 35, but that fraction looks reducible. If I divide both by 7, I get 3 over 5. So I would say my final answer is the sine of z equals 3 over 5. These first 3 problems, all I wanted was the trigonometric ratio. Whenever you hear ratio, you should be thinking one number over another number. So that's all I want for the first 3. Can you figure out the sine, the cosine, or the tangent of any of these triangles? Let's move on to some problems now where you have to actually figure out the measure of an angle. So I have 2 problems here. Both of them are asking the same question. What is the measure of the missing angle? Now, this worksheet generator that I use doesn't use theta, it uses a question mark. So just imagine that the question mark is your theta, okay? Problem number 4. To find the missing angle, I have to figure out, should I be using sine, should I be using cosine, or should I be using tangent? Now, keep that piece of paper next to you where you should have some notes on what sine means, what cosine means, and what tangent means. I look at the 19. 19 is one of my legs. And in this case, it's on the other side of my angle, so 19 is my opposite leg, and 57 is across from the 90-degree angle, so that's my hypotenuse. So in this case, I know the opposite leg and the hypotenuse. And if you look at your notes from the last video, opposite leg, hypotenuse, that is sine. So I'm going to start this problem by writing The sine of theta equals 19 over 57. Now you need your cheat sheet. Now when you look at the cheat sheet, you're going to see decimal numbers. So when you're finding the missing angle, now we need to go a step further. I need to actually figure out what is 19 over 57 as a decimal. And it turns out that 19 over 57 as a decimal is 0.3333, repeating forever and ever. Now we need to go to my cheat sheet, look down the sign column, and find the decimal that's closest to it. So here we are on my cheat sheet. I am only looking at the sign column, and I'm going to start at 1 degree, very small number here, 0.0175, and I'm going to keep scrolling until I get to 0.3333 or something close to it. Now I'm going to stop right here because I think I've found it. I found the two numbers that are surrounding it. I see 0.3256 and I see 0.3420. And the question now is, which number is closest to that? And it's really close on this one, but if you do the subtraction, it turns out 0.3256 is a little bit closer to 0.3333. So I'm going to slide to the left and see that the answer should be 19 degrees. Let's go back and write our answer in. So here we are back at this problem. We looked up 0.3333 on our cheat sheet, and we were kind of right in the middle of 19 and 20, but if you do a little subtraction on your calculator, you should be able to see that 0.3333 went closer with the 19 degrees. So I'm going to say that the measure of angle theta is 19 degrees. Let's move on to number 5. So first thing we're going to have to figure out with number 5 is the same thing on number 4. Should we be using sine, cosine, or tangent? Right away, the first thing that jumps off the screen to me is that 7's my hypotenuse. It's across from the 90-degree angle. Right away, I know this is not tangent. Tangent uses the opposite leg and the adjacent leg. Doesn't use the hypotenuse. So I know it's either sine or cosine. The question is 2 my opposite leg or my adjacent leg? And when I look at this picture, I can see that the angle they want is right next to that 2. That means 2 is my adjacent leg. So in this problem, we have the adjacent leg, we have the hypotenuse, that is going to be cosine. So let's set up our problem. So I have set up cosine of theta equals 2 over 7. 2 is my adjacent leg, 7 is my hypotenuse. So the cosine of theta is 2 over 7. Now we're going to need to convert that to a decimal so that we can use our cheat sheet. And my calculator is telling me that we get about 0.2857. So it's time to go back to the cheat sheet and see which number is closest to that. So I'm back at my cheat sheet. Now remember, this time we're going to go down the cosine column. Remember, the cosine column starts off big, 0.9998, and starts scrolling down. So I'm going to jump right away to the second side over here because I can see we still haven't hit what we're looking for yet, which is 0.2857. So we scroll down. And there we are, 0.2857 is right between these two numbers. And I do a little subtraction, and I can see that I'm going to go with the 0.2924. And if I slide to the left, we get 73 degrees. So here we are back at the worksheet. And I'm going to write that the measure of angle theta is about 73 degrees. So there's two problems where we are finding a missing angle. Now let's do a couple problems where we're finding a missing side. So here we are, problem number 6. We're moving along really nicely here. The first thing I notice in this problem is we're looking for a missing side, and I can tell right away it's one of the legs that's missing. So we have the angle 55 degrees and we have two sides. I can see right away both of these are my legs. 13 is my opposite leg, X is my adjacent leg. And if you remember from our last couple lessons, that's tangent. So let's set this up. So here's how we start. Since we're using tangent, I wrote TAN for tangent. And this time we know the angle, 55. So I wrote tangent of 55 equals opposite leg over adjacent leg, which in this case is 13 over X. Remember, to solve for a missing side, I always set up a proportion. And the way you set up a proportion is just take the tangent of 55 and put it as over 1. Now you're going to have to go to your cheat sheet, find tangent of 55, change it to a decimal. I'm going to look it up this time just on my regular piece of paper and type it in. You're not going to see me actually switch over this time. So I went over to my cheat sheet. I looked up tangent of 55. I get 1.4281. Now all we need to do is solve this proportion. And yes, the way we solve any proportion is we're going to cross multiply. So after I cross multiply, I wind up with 1.4281 times x equals 1 times 13, which is just 13. And now we're going to divide both sides by 1.4281. And according to my calculator, the answer we get to the nearest tenth is about 9.1. And if you want to be perfect, put units down there. Now let's move on to our last problem. And here we are. It's another find the missing side problem. Step 1, should we be using sine or cosine or tangent? Let's figure that out right away. Right away, I see that the 19 is my hypotenuse. It's across from the 90-degree angle. Okay. The side we're looking for is definitely one of my legs, and if I look closely, it's the leg that's right next to the angle that they give me. That's my adjacent leg. We're looking for the adjacent leg. We know the hypotenuse. Adjacent leg, hypotenuse, you should be thinking cosine. Let's set up our proportion. So here's my start. Cosine of 60, because we know the angle, we put it in. Cosine of 60 equals x over 19. I don't want you to start thinking, oh, tangent, x goes on the bottom. Oh, cosine, x goes on the top. No, x went on the top this time because x is my adjacent leg. 19 went on the bottom because 19 is my hypotenuse. And in cosine, adjacent leg goes on top, hypotenuse goes on the bottom. Now you know what we need to do. Let's make a proportion out of it. So I just put over 1 for cosine of 60, and it makes a proportion. How do we solve any proportion? We cross multiply. And this gives me x equals 19 times cosine of 60. Now you might be wondering, Mr. Boyle, how come you didn't change cosine of 60 to the decimal? I just want to show you, you didn't have to do it at that point. You could do it right here now. So I cross multiply, I got x, 1 times x is x. And then I have 19 times the cosine of 60. Now, with the way I've taught you, now you'll need to go to your cheat sheet and look up what is the cosine of 60. So once again, I'm going to do this off screen. I'm going to take my piece of paper. I'm going to look to see what the cosine of 60 degrees is, and I'm going to write that number down. See if you get the same thing that I get. And this one's kind of interesting because you actually get exactly 0.5. There's a few extra zeros. If you want to leave them there, that's fine. So now we actually can just figure out how long our missing side is. 19 times 0.5. And we get x is equal to 9.5. And if you want to be perfect, units. So that's it. I just went through 7 problems. Finding a trigonometric ratio, finding a missing angle, finding a missing side. Step 1, figure out whether you're using sine, cosine, or tangent. That's what you always want to do. Please rewind this video. Watch it again if you have to. The worksheet problems should look very similar to the 7 problems I just solved here. So hopefully this worksheet helps you out a lot. That's all for today. That's all the videos for this week. I'm Mr. Boyle. Bye-bye.